Can you explain to the viewer how a Diebold voting machine can be hacked from a remote location? I know at times you've mentioned that foreign nationals can access.
Sure.
Take us through this.
Department of Homeland Security actually, and this is some of the people involved in issuing this, very good friends of mine from the U.S. CERT Center, which is the Cyber Emergency Response Team. The U.S. CERT Center actually put out a full warning, which I'm sure your station can get a copy of, warning that the way Diebold systems are architected, in the way the tabulators communicate to the Central State Tabulation Center, is subject to foreign national hacking. They put out a warning about it. To the best of my knowledge, this is still the case. Here's how it happens. Each individual machine has significant problems. Most machines are not set up, the individual machine that you as a voter touch, are not set up so that they themselves are electronically networked. A few of them are. Some of them hook up to phone lines for a variety of reasons. Some of them have IR port, infrared ports, the same way you scan information back and forth from a PDA. Inside of those machines are a number of layers of information, but eventually they get down to a memory card, which itself is subject to hacking. There are several subject to hackings in the operating systems, viruses, codes, screen flips. All those things can occur, but let's assume everything worked correctly in the machine and you now have a card with the correct votes in the machine. Personally, we have no way to know this, but let's assume it's true. We then take those machines to the county elections headquarters. All those cards come in and one by one are inserted into a central tabulator. That tabulator is then supposed to take the total votes from each of the precincts and the total votes from the county and electronically transport them from that machine to a central state tabulation machine. Here's the problem. How is that moved from point A to point B? It's moved through common carriers. It'd be very easy if you understood the IP addresses, and this is something that anyone with basic electronic intercept skills understand. You can mimic an IP address and, in the process of that information being transferred to point A to point B, see it. Now, it may be PGP encrypted, it may be socket level encrypted, which Diebold claims to be the case. However, in the 3 counties where I have personally gone and asked the people who do the tabulation, they have no idea how to do encryption, what the encryption is, how it's set, or who sets it. So again, we're just trusting what Diebold says, oh, don't worry, it's encrypted. But none of the voting elections or officials know this or understand how it works. Okay, well then let a professional who actually looks at encryption key algorithm systems, which I have for probably over 100 banks, let me see the system. I can tell you whether or not they're actually using a key exchange system, which will make for a secure transmission, or not. I tend to think they're not doing so.
So, again, you've said forget the problems on the front end when a voter...
Let's assume there are no problems.
Okay, right, and we won't even talk about Princeton at this point. But so as a voter, if I touch the screen, I'm assuming my vote is secure, but you're saying at that point, a lot can happen to your vote.
The chain of custody in terms of that vote. Here's my finger, and if I were to write on a ballot, that ballot is now a permanent document. What is happening now is when you touch that screen has circuitry inside of it. And the circuitry inside of it talks to a data field. That data field below it is basically like you walking up and opening a curtain. There's a little man there, and you say, hello, what's your vote? And I said, well, I'd like to vote for this. He goes, okay, thank you. Then he closes the screen and goes to a different screen and tells someone else. So that next layer is the operating system. Now, you don't really know what the screen is telling the operating system because you can't see it. So unlike a vote that you've marked, the screen now takes that information and passes it to a field set in the operating system. Who knows who wrote the operating system? Diebold won't tell us.